Well, here I am back again, and guess who's with me? Aha! The wonderful John Henty, who is plentying of hentying.
Of course, my dear friends. Plenty of henty. That's what we need
Yes.
on a miserable day.
Now we've got a double treat for you because along with John Henty, we got Dr. Mark Mabey. And now talk about two characters. As if I can, we're having all sorts of technical things this morning, and I have no idea why. As usual, there. Look at that. There we are. See no evil.
Wave your hand, Mark, just in case. Could you wave your hand, please? I don't think you can hear us now. You see?
Can you not hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're okay.
Yes.
Are we okay?
Yeah, we're okay. Are you okay?
We're okay if you're okay.
That's a rhetorical question, I think, if you two are okay.
Well, it's all over the place this morning. Everybody's bracing for a storm, and of course the sun has come out.
Yes, it's beautiful here, except there's a roaring fire in the background.
Now,
you've got the bonfire already.
I asked John if he would sit in with us this morning because John is a great aficionado of Max Miller, and he collects all sorts of memorabilia, just the same as you do. And I was explaining to him with your fountain pens and your fob watches and so on. And I thought how fascinating to get the two of you together.
Excellent. Yes, I see there's a roaring fire.
Entirely right. Yes. I mean, how do you explain collecting to other people? A lot of people regard it as hoarding. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think most people think I'm a bit eccentric, really. They say, "Oh, well, why would you? Why collect all these mad things?" I've got, I've got most probably 65 pocket watches, and say, "Why would you want 65 pocket watches?" But everyone's different, and they're all amazing bits of technology, and some of them use a key on, some of them you wind. It's just joy. But yeah, you're right, John. People call me totally eccentric and mad, which I am, of course.
Of course. Well, I like the word eccentric. That's a polite way of putting it, I suppose. Some would say perhaps a nutcase, which I think both of us would refute. But eccentric, yes. I like because it hops on something I said last week. And this man is a prime example of that. I said, and you will agree, I'm sure, don't be ordinary, be extraordinary. Yeah. And that's eccentricity.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it, John.
Exactly.
I think that, I noticed, I said this to Keith a couple of times, that when we met back in 2011, 2012 in Notting Hill, we were both characters. And basically, particularly in education, I don't know about other, but characters have slowly been chipped out of the system. But I choose that. I think it's extraordinary, and certainly Keith is extraordinary.
That's right.
Yeah, we've got the sound.
Oh, it's gone off. Keith, you're just a little turning circle, no picture of the handsome John or you. Perhaps it's just me.
There we are. Let's try again, Mark.
Back again, Keith. It's technology for you.
Exactly.
I don't know whether it's to do with the weather, but I came in this morning and I had a frustrating morning all morning with the techniques of this thing. It even sent me down to the North Pole at one stage. I think it thought it was Christmas.
Well, that was nice. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, could I, Mark, explain to John what you're about? Because I think he'll approve. Mark he's just retired after a very distinguished academic career, but he's taken or joined two young men who recognize that academia is not turning out the right sort of people with a degree, but pretty useless. And so they are, and they've raised very impressively. They've raised what, about $1 million so far?
Yeah, 1.6 million.
Sorry?
Yeah, they've raised about 1.6 million.
Yeah, for a university without lecture halls.
Excellent.
Yeah.
But how would that? Now you know this, but how would that be achieved then without the lecture halls? Then you mean online?
No, not necessarily.
Oh,
so it will be. Yeah, sure. So John, it'll be a physical presence. So it'll be a physical building, but instead of students sitting in lectures for hours on end, being educated or bored silly, there'll basically be lots of workshops, live projects. We'll have employers coming in to run the sessions just with maybe 4 or 5 students, and then the 4 or 5 students will go back out into their companies, do the experience. So there won't actually be any formal lecturing, and in fact we'll be having employers and people like yourself and Keith, they will actually be assessing the students on how good they are, how capable they are, etc. So that's the way that it's planned to go. But you've gone back into a little whirling hole. Back again.
Yeah, there we are. Let's try it again.
It's madness,
I don't think it's progress against us. Okay, Mark.
How much did you get of that? Did you get much of that? I said
no, but actually, we now have got you much clearer. Much clearer. So
that's good.
We understand.
Good.
Yeah. So again.
So not a physical. It will have a physical presence. So it will be a nice building, starting off in Manchester, but it will be run on workshops, small group learning, employers coming in to run sessions with the students going back out and applying some of those things that they've learned into the workplace, and that's how it will build. And we'll, instead of having academics assessing all the work, back again.
Yeah, there we go.
It's a raging inferno today, Keith.
It is. It's burning everything.
I don't know whether there's a message with all those flames, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it's trying to tell me something. You know, that is if it's good enough for Guy Fawkes, it's good enough for you.
Well, that's right. That's the trouble with doing this in Lewis, you see. It's we're obsessed with bonfire, I'm afraid. And unless you have flames everywhere. I mean, last night, of course, it was allegedly trick or treat and Halloween. And they don't bother too much about that in Lewis, actually, because they're, a few days' time, they'll be going bananas in other directions. So it's a unique situation. But Mark, just to come back to you, the sound hasn't been very good, but I picked up what you were saying. I applaud it. I have a granddaughter who's 17 and looking towards university. And as a journalist, someone who never went to university, we're debating this sort of thing. And any alternative of the sort you suggest would ring bells with me, would make sense. Yeah, 100%.
And it would also mean, the other big thing, John, as I know you're aware, and your granddaughter will be, these young people are leaving university with massive amount of debt, 35,000 pounds of debt. So actually, plan is that they'll be working while they're studying. So actually, they won't need the loan. All they need is the tuition fees, which is £9,000. So they can potentially save £28,000 odd, and they'll be working. They say earning and learning. That's really what they'll be doing, but in the real world. And the hope is that we're going to start it in Manchester. But I did say to Keith, and I spoke offline, but I spoke to the councillor, and I'll be really interested in us setting out. We're going to have a central hub with spokes, and it'd be really interesting to have a spoke in Lewes, which is a cold spot with no higher education, but it could be for everybody. You don't have to be 18 to 25. You could be 60, but it'd be open for anybody to come and do a degree.
Yes, I like that. And there is this question of location, which is valid at the moment where I'm concerned. For example, the granddaughter and her parents made a rather windswept journey to Bournemouth along the coast here, where there was a course or a whole something that interested her there in Bournemouth. But the trouble is, it was a dreadful day. The sort of accommodation that they were shown was not at all good. Then there is the question of cost as well. And I think, unfortunately, whilst they were impressed by what was available, it was what was meant by where you were doing it and where you were staying and who you were mixing with, which is all valid as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely true. And I think that's the key. Part of going to university isn't all about learning. It's about having a social experience and having fun and going to pubs and clubs, that sort of thing. But actually, you can still have that. So, for example, if we set up a spoke up in Lewes, it would still have a students' union. It would still have a bar. It would still have all those social things. But actually, most of the young people would live at home, so they wouldn't have the expense of accommodation. And we think that having this hub and spoke mechanism will mean that we can run the same programs in different areas, maybe all based around innovation, but innovation is a very big sort of subject area. But I think it's something that I keep talking to people about, and there are a number of people that didn't have that opportunity to go to university, that are in their 30s or 40s. And a lot of them don't want to take out a student loan because they've already got a mortgage and things like that. So actually, this is an ideal opportunity for them also to engage and maybe do things. We're looking at running things on Saturdays and Sundays, and in the evening, a bit like the old school night school. Back in the 60s. In the 70s, I did an ONC on a night school. Worked in a hospital during the day, and then went to night school in the evening. So maybe doing an evening and a Saturday, or an evening and a Sunday, where it fits in with childcare. Partner can look after the kids, etc. So I think that area of flexibility is something that will be attractive.
And in terms of people with experience, I should tell you that John opened Radio Brighton.
Oh,
Fantastic.
Yes, and in those days, it was an open door. So the good thing about that was, and it follows perhaps what you're suggesting, people were able to have their jobs, but in the evenings they were able to come in and be part of a whole range of community programs, even from fishing to dogs to bowling, you name it, gardening as well. And of course, the sports coverage then, there was only basically one sports reporter, and that was me. And everybody else, of course, was freelancing, but learning how to use the phone in reports from various places. And they learned it on the job. They didn't get paid, but then it put them in a very good position when they were looking further ahead. And that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like many things, isn't it? So, the wheel seems to come round in a full circle. And,
yes.
lot of things that I've been, I've got these two young guys in their early 20s who are working with me on the project. One of them hasn't got a degree at all, and he's the one that's been really looking at finance. Another guy actually has got a first-class honours degree in maths from Edinburgh University. But between them, they bring a really interesting combination of things, and they've been successful in getting an entrepreneur on board. Yes. And he's pump primed this because obviously it's an expensive thing to set up. We'll need about 2 million to set up, and we'll actually get things going next year in January, February. Go for what we call degree awarding powers, and then possibly university status. But the most important thing is bringing education back into the community. I never really crossed my mind until I started doing this with Keith, but I thought Lewis would be a really interesting place to put our first spoke, because there isn't any higher education. As you say, John, you've really got to go to Brighton or Bournemouth to get a university experience. And so this could be a really interesting pilot that we could run in the community.
Completely right about that. And the other thing that always strikes me as a communicator myself is the ability to actually communicate. You can have the most amazing degrees behind you, but if you can't communicate and get across to other people, and basically, I'm afraid, sell yourself, a lot of people, particularly if they are introvert, and many students are introvert, teach them in a way to come out of themselves and relate to other people and be interested not only in academia but interested in other people. That's not always the case, sadly. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's exactly right. And in fact, that was the idea of not having these. Students get absorbed into a group where there's 200. I've done it myself. Taught 250 students in a lecture theatre, and they're just a number. But actually, this idea of having them in small groups, maybe of 6 students, they've got to interact, they've got to communicate, they've got to do that. And so you can build those skills right from day one when they start. And yes, we lots of employers that I speak to say fantastic young people. They come out, they're intellectually so sharp, but actually it takes us 6 months to get them work ready because they aren't particularly good communicators. They don't have those interpersonal skills. So I think that this could be something that is really different and gets them ready for that.
Couldn't agree more, and you would agree with that, Keith.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, Mark has asked me to sort of be part of this. I'm honoured. And when you came in, and I was just about to talk to Mark, I thought you're the very man, because you and I think very much alike. We're both as mad as hatters. So is he, which is a great combination.
Absolutely.
So, Mark, can I ask you, because one of the things that John and I both find is that we are innovators and we're initiators, but we don't get a lot of support from either the council or actually local business or whatever. What was your reaction after having chatted to one of our councillors?
Yeah, good. She seemed really interested in the potential for the project, particularly for Lewis and what it might bring to the community in Lewis. And I think it'd be useful for us to have a meeting. And I was thinking of getting on that good old train and making my way down to Lewis and perhaps coming in one day to talk face to face. But I'm here too.
I think it'd be very, 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 very good, actually. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. What's your timeline on this, Mark?
I'd like to be able to do something before Christmas, really. Come down and have a chat with the councillor and perhaps with John there too. It'd be really great to have us all just have a bit of a discussion, a bit of debate. I'll bring Will Hill with me, who's the young guy who's doing most of the work. He's difficult to get hold of because he's all over the country, sort of doing promotion, getting the funding together. But I think that'd be an interesting way of taking it forward. And there's no reason why we can't do it at this particular time, but perhaps all together and face to face.
Yeah, very good. You should know that, John, would you not?
Good idea. Anybody coming to Lewes is welcome. And yeah, absolutely. A free for all, and it'd be better. By the way, you'd better wear a hat because unfortunately you'll have to find a hat. I'm afraid. That is good.
I've got quite an apt hat here. Look.
Ah, perfection.
It's a Stoke City hat.
Ho ho ho! Is all I say. Stoke City.
Stoke City. Hey up, Doc.
I've got to pick up on John's background too. He was the announcer for Crystal Palace for the longest time.
Selhurst Park. Yeah. Crystal Palace for years and years and years. Yes. Wow. Good afternoon and welcome to Selhurst Park. Yep. And I was there the day that Eric Cantona attacked a member of the crowd. I was in charge at the time. I watched in disbelief as Cantona disappeared into the crowd. I had a perfect view of it, actually. The one thing in my commentating hut that you couldn't see was both goals. I mean, unbelievable. You could see the goal at the other end, but what was happening down here, you couldn't see. The crowd, you could see everywhere. And people used to get angry at me. They'd say, what was the name of the scorer? And I say, well, I don't know. You're watching. You tell me. I used to get very angry, actually. And to be very careful, you know, because when you've got a microphone and you think you suddenly see Eric Cantona, or what's it now? There was that Paul Ince. Dear, oh dear, these are names. Paul Ince, he got a bit nasty and a bit stroppy on that particular evening. Couldn't believe it. I even had the directors coming into my box ultimately saying, we've got to stop this. We've got to stop this. And I said, well, I mean, the stories I could relate, which I would probably choose not to, I think I can safely say. Enough.
No. So that's one up on Stoke, you see. Hey up, Duck, we say. Hey up, Duck. Hey up, Duck. You're right, Duck.
Absolutely.
Right, Mark, anything to add to us today? Or let's get together off screen and arrange that to sit down here. I'll see if I can get one or two more people. I've got a vague idea of someone I think I know who might be prepared to at least help fundraise a few bob for that. Yeah,
that'd be great. And if I've spoken to the other guys, and would be really delighted if you come on the board of the university, Keith. That would be a great privilege if you did it.
Yeah, very proud.
That'd be great. Perhaps I'll try. I've not been successful in catching Suzanne, but it would be really great if next week we could see if we could get Suzanne.
Let's talk. Perhaps what we can do is touch base on the weekend and discuss some dates. Yeah,
that sounds great.
I should say, John, is that the things that you and I don't particularly care for doing is Mark has agreed to sit on a sort of a little advisory board so that we can get some of the business done, which you and I run away from.
Good idea.
Okay, shall we talk over the weekend then, Mark?
That'd be great then, Keith, and I'll look forward to coming down having a pint with you and John.
Excellent. Well, let's hope that we can take this forward. It's caught my imagination, and you've called it Innovators, I think, have you not?
Yes, it's currently called the School of Innovation.
Right. So I think that's a good title.
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. You know, it doesn't need university in the title. It you know, that's not really what we're looking to. You know, we're still going to run degrees, but it will be the School of Innovation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that you can get the certificate or whatever is to be accepted very quickly. I would have thought. Yeah.
Here we are. 2, 4, 6, 8. Innovate.
Very good. The logo. Excellent.
Okay, Mark. Right, we'll touch base over the weekend.
Brilliant.
Great.
Lovely to do it.
Well,
there we are. You see what is happening with Mirador is it's stepping into other areas, but I think worthwhile areas.
where others fear to tread.
Indeed. So, what have you got to say for yourself?
Not a lot today.
Where's the little bag?
Well, first of all, I have an apology to make. Regular viewers may well know that last week I did offer an opportunity for an elephant to appear in the room. Now, people often talk about the elephant in the room. So I thought, well, today would be a good idea to introduce an elephant into the room. The trouble is, I don't know, do you know much about elephants?
Not a great deal.
I
no.
didn't think you did. You don't watch that Attenborough man and his elephants.
Not a great deal.
No, I mustn't say this, but I'm afraid he may well be an icon, but I find him rather irritating. That's another matter. It's the voice that concerns me. And also, I thought last week, and I'm deviating now, but I thought last week I will watch this Planet Earth 3 or whatever it was. I'll give it a try because I have certain views, and I thought, well, maybe I'm wrong. I watched it, and for the first 15 minutes, I'm afraid it proved exactly what I'm concerned about, and I decided not to click, but I left it like that. The reason being, in the main, and there'll be people prepared to argue this, I'm sure, but my concern is that I'm fairly convinced that the units that go on these safaris or wherever they are, they obviously have to get good action footage. And that normally means finding a little sweet little creature somewhere and then looking around to see whether they can find any predators. Yeah. And then let's get them together, let's film it, and then let's hope that one or two of them escapes so that we all feel a bit better. Now, do that once, all right. But to do it almost at the beginning of the program, and I thought, this was, I think, largely about underwater. I don't care where it is. There, of course, there were sweet little tiddly things going around. Lovely, super. Then an enormous thing with a mouth the size of John Henty and Keith Hayes put together. And guess what? It was going, ooh, and eating all these tiddlers and things like that. I thought, no, I don't want to know that. Then it got worse, and there were people stinging things. And I don't know. I know what Attenborough will say, and maybe we could get him on here. I don't think we can afford him, actually. But, I mean,
we're going to donate.
I mean, the only thing I'll give him credit for is the fact that he's 97 and he's still earning money, which, I mean, we would both agree that is not praiseworthy. But I must admit that it may be not entirely his fault. But certainly these film units, brilliant photography, sensational photography. And they'll say, yes, but then it's all about life and death. I think they concentrate too much, and you can't afford to concentrate, particularly at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, on death. Let's concentrate on life. Now, he will argue with doing that. He'll say that we're concerned about the planet. I accept all of that. But I think a lot of the filming, to me, is questionable, and I won't watch it. So there we are. And now elephants.
Yeah. Now, just before we leave that, I remember many years ago when Disney was heavily into natural history programs, and there was some suggestion that they actually ushered lemmings over a cliff because it was accepted that lemmings committed suicide over a cliff. And there's no evidence of that, apparently.
Is that right?
It's a myth that they actually put onto celluloid. Yeah. So I think that you really have some cause for concern.
Well, like I said, this is what free speech is all about. There are a lot of people who think he does a wonderful job. The film units are quite remarkable, and under very, very, very difficult conditions. All of that is true. I just think to keep an audience, I do think they have to have. And there's another thing too that I also object to. It's the use of music where this ominous music suddenly, boom, 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 touch of the Jaws, for example. Yeah. And I think in real life, in real natural history, you don't need the music. But the trouble is, without the music, there is a very good argument that it wouldn't have the same impact, and people may not. That's a very interesting point, actually. Take away actually some of that dramatic music. There's been a lot on television in the last few weeks, months, years on investigations now into murders, sinister crimes, abuse. And again, they tend to use music. And I think, well, you don't, in real life, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, right.
Why do they need that music? It should be, and then also the other thing is, of course, hard of hearing as I am, music destroys dialogue very often.
Yes,
and you can't hear. And the number of commercials and advertisements you hear on the radio where the music is, I know there's one or two people. You're right. There's a lady there in something who's agreeing. Quite right, madam. You have the hearing. She has hearing aids as well. Exactly. So, I mean, that's the problem. It's distorted and it's over the top. Like someone is saying, so are you, John Henty. Be honest, you're too loud. Sorry.
No, but this is Mirador. We don't do things in the normal way.
I mean, no. I could do a David Attenborough very easily. Good gracious, there's some dreadful, awful creature just about to come in the window at this very moment. Let's have a look. No. So I'm going to bring the elephant, but unfortunately it refused. It may be the weather. It may have heard the forecast. I've no idea. It simply would not come out of the house. It said, no, I'm sorry. I don't care whether it's primetime television, whatever it is. I'm not coming.
You don't think that it packed its bag and went to the circus like Nelly, do you?
It could be.
Yes.
Lovely song.
Yes.
Nelly the elephant. The trunk went to the
circus. Off she went with a trumpety trump, 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 trump.
Don't say Trump. Don't say Trump. For goodness sake, don't say Trump. In fact, there's a lovely band that I could recommend to viewers called Trumporama. Trumporama. Look it up on Google, Trumporama. Here's the bag, and it's Village Sausages once again, of course. Sponsored by Village Sausages. And today I brought a little item that I thought might amuse. I was a bit worried about getting it wet because it's tin. Here we are. We're getting it out here. This is.
Oh, how wonderful!
Yeah. Well, we haven't got
that little bag provides wonders week after week after week.
I know that is remarkable. Yeah. Now that is obviously a fairground ride. It can be quite dangerous actually when it works. And of course, we know whenever I introduce these things on Mirador, they don't damn well work, do they? Well, do you think this is going to work? And if it does,
look
at that!
Look at that! Fantastic!
What? Who would go for a ride on that? And it takes a few moments to calm itself down, and there we go. So that's another little item that we used to sell when we had a little shop in Cornwall. And you can imagine, even though I'm a little concerned when you sell it to kiddywinkies, because it could actually poke them in the eye, undeniably so. But we must admit that is, again, I think largely and almost certainly made in Czechoslovakia, I would think. Could be wrong.
Well, they made a lot of these things, and they were very good.
Absolutely remarkable. And they are, I'm sure Mark would appreciate that, they are relatively collectible.
Yes,
especially in good nick and especially still working. So sorry about the elephant. I know several people, including that lady in something, tuned in particularly to see the elephant. I mean, promises.
Well, tune in again next week.
Well, I will invite it, but with elephants, you really can't force an elephant. I don't know. Do you remember Bertram Mills Circus in London? Oh, my goodness. A number of times I went there. I think it was at Earl's Court. And a wonderful circus. Then, of course, there were real animals, of course, which we know, again, is a difficult subject.
Yes, I'm a bit ambivalent about that, to be quite honest with you. I'm not at all sure.
I would agree with that entirely. And if you've ever seen a travelling circus, and I have on many occasions, when you see the cages, whatever the fair man may say, by and large, those animals stuck in cages shouldn't be there at all. Another topic, I'm afraid, for another occasion.
Yeah. And yes, you got terribly excited when the ringmaster walked into 4 tigers all going.
Yes, I know. Well, there's a Max Miller joke about that, which I don't think I can quite remember at the moment.
No, I think bring it along with the elephant next week.
I'll try and bring it with the elephant next week, Keith. Meantime, I'd better go out and weather the storm, as they say.
Well, it looks as if it's gathering pace again. There was a bit of sun.
Well, we'll wait and see, won't we? I mean, that's the other thing, forecast. I mean, again, good luck to forecasters. It's an impossible job. But I just wish they didn't do it with so much relish. They sort of, and that was the other thing I bought that I did mention to you a little earlier on. And I think this demonstrates really perhaps our spirit. That yesterday I did buy myself, because I keep a diary. You know I keep a diary.
Indeed.
And I've now been keeping a diary since the year 1947, which is a very long time. And so yesterday I bought my next diary for 2024. And I thought, that's pretty ambitious, John. With so much gloom and despondency at the moment, here I am buying a diary to relate what happens in 2024.
I don't think that, no, that's not ambitious, John, because the rest of the world may implode. That you and I... Onward and upward.
Oh, probably.
We will be here in 2065.
Try and get rid of us. I mean, that's what they've been trying to do for years, you see. But you don't get rid of people like us. We can be very, very... He can. Enormously stubborn. Me, I'm a little bit like this, on the other hand.
Well, I mean, look what we've achieved this morning.
Oh.
We've taken people back in time.
Yes.
We did some Czech tin plate stuff, collectibles, and we've helped us start a university.
Oh,
I mean, not a bad morning's work.
Oh, we talked about elephants.
Absolutely.
And another thing that I'm going to leave everybody with this, because it's something, just shows you there is value in television and radio, of course. And I think the most interesting thing I heard very recently, and I'm not prepared to discuss any further, and that is, do you know the average life of a housefly? No, I didn't think you did. Not many people do. Yeah. The lady in something does know. What was that, dear? Oh, no. I'm afraid that's wrong. No. It's only 35 days. A housefly only lives for 35 days.
Really?
Yes, that is perfectly true.
Which of those days do you think is its Christmas Day?
I think, well, flies are sensitive. I mean, you may not think so. Obviously, the trouble is, would you be sensitive if the whole time people were trying to
spot you?
Exactly. It must be hell to be a housefly.
Yeah, absolutely. Spend most of that 35 days avoiding disaster.
Well, there are no flies on you and me. And on that wonderful note, I shall go. Oh dear. I've got a lot of things to do today. You know.
Do them well.
Oh, total.
And we'll see you next week.
Well, I sincerely hope so.
Indeed. I'm absolutely sure of it. People like us were sent to bother the world.
Oh.
Despite all the trauma of the earlier part of the morning, we've had a bit of fun, and I don't know how these things happen. We've had a bit of fun, and I'm beginning to spark again. So thank you, John, and thank you, Mark, and I hope that tomorrow we're going to re-show parts of this anyway. And then what we'll do is on Friday we'll have another whoop-de-doo with some live stuff. Until then, we'll say toodle pip. Indeed, we will, if we can find the appropriate things to say goodbye with. Indeed, there it is. I can never find this damn thing. There we go. Ta-ra.